Welcome to office hours. Here to answer any questions you have. I am Shauna, the network organizer for Women's March. Feel free to drop your location in the chat and ask any questions you have about the weekend of action for International Women's Day or about any upcoming information. Happy to help folks organize or whatever you have going on. See a few people getting on. Um, Again, Shauna, the network organizer with Women's March. Happy to answer any questions anyone has about local organizing, about how the weekend went. I think it was a great success. There were a lot of interesting events that took place all over the world. So wonderful, wonderful stuff going on. People really standing out and doing their best to be represented and represent women and girls all over the world. Any questions anyone has, feel free to put them in the chat. You can go ahead and drop in anything you have around organizing, any questions about the actions that happened this weekend, any questions about upcoming actions. I am here to help, here to answer anything that might be happening. Want to give folks a little bit of time to get in. I see we have a handful of people here. This is our normal office hours. Just to give clarity to folks, we come on, usually it's Risa. I'm sure some of you know Risa. I am Shauna. I am the network organizer for Women's March. So I help organize some of the actions that happen across the country, help teach folks how to stand up actions in their local community. But we do office hours regularly to make sure we're here helping folks in their local communities with whatever issues or questions come up, trying to help people get organized on the ground, everything from a rally to mutual aid. Really anything that you might have interest in, happy to answer any questions y'all have. I see a good bit of people showing up, so let me know where you're watching from. Um, Join me in the chat. Definitely have a little conversation here, and we can talk about everything that's going on. If you're considering putting up a action, if you're considering for the first time ever doing anything, let's say for No Kings or for anything that's coming up, feel free to ask questions. I'm happy to help answer them. Again, Shauna from Women's March. I'm the network organizer. You usually get our wonderful Risa with you. She is on her way back from the amazing action at the Zorro Ranch this weekend, where survivors and others gathered to say that no to letting folks off the hook, to say no to letting people not have accountability. So glad to have you all here. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them in the chat. Happy to try and help with any type of organizing you have going on locally. Um, like I said, whether it's a rally, whether it's a sit-in, whether it's um, prepping for, a speak out, there's multiple different things people could be doing. If you just have questions about things happening in your own community, happy to try and help where I can. Would love to hear back from folks in the comment if you attended any of the events this weekend, how they went, what your takeaways were, what you did for International Women's Day if you weren't able to attend any of the events on our map, and what your plans are from here. If folks have things that they want to do, now is your time to get those asks in. You can submit your questions using the comment feature on Facebook and YouTube. I'm happy to take a look and see what's going on. I see a few folks joining from around the country. Glad to have you here. I feel like we have a little bit of lag, so I apologize for that. Sometimes the internet is funky. And I am working from home with a child working from home, so you might hear a little bit of noise in the background. But again, if you have any questions on putting up an action, if you have any thoughts on what happened this weekend, if you have things going on locally and you want information on what you can do or ways to activate or build community in your neighborhood, happy to help with any of that. So feel free to jump in the chat, ask your questions. Happy to answer anything that you may have. I see folks both on from YouTube and from Facebook. This is our regular office hours. So know that anytime you have any questions, if you're building something locally and you have questions, this is a place that you can come and you can ask those questions, and we will do our best to help you. I won't say we know everything, but we know some things. And we're happy to help try and build your local community or build your event or whatever it is that you're doing, have going on locally. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate y'all in the chat. Sending back to you all as well. I appreciate everybody who came out this weekend. Would love to hear what folks did. If you attended any of the events on the map, if there's anyone on that was in Albuquerque, outside of Albuquerque at the Zorro Ranch, that was one of the bigger actions that we did. So we had survivors there, and they were telling their stories, and it was quite powerful. It was definitely quite powerful. So so we Virginia. I see Virginia on the map here. I know we had an action in Reston because I was talking with that host before it happened, and that one was quite good as well. Really excited to see all the pictures. I know folks are still sending them in from their various locations to us, but very excited to see what everybody got down to. I know there were sit-ins in some areas. There were rallies in some areas. Some people did some teach-ins, which is great, always passing on the knowledge. So there's always opportunities to do things that are other than a protest, but help folks grow into really the muscles we need to keep protesting and keep fighting. So appreciate everybody showing up. Again, for those just tuning in, I am Shauna. I am the network organizer with Women's March. Let me see what we got here. Schools protesting ICE were targeted for government takeovers. Mm. So I don't have confirmation of that, but I'm also going to say it's entirely possible in the atmosphere today. Um, I think there are a few things that are happening in Texas with the schools that have been really well documented. So I think we actually had a teacher from Texas on, not on our last mass call, but the one before that, I believe it was, talking about some of the things that are happening in Texas schools, specifically when people walk out or when there are ICE protests happening, and the individual targeting of teachers and students that's going on. So it definitely is. I don't have direct confirmation of that, but I know there is repercussions happening for asserting your right to free speech and right to assembly. And so we are in a time where we know that that is possible in some of those areas. Anyone else have any questions you want to throw in the chat? Happy to just be in community and talk with y'all about what's happening. Um, I know across the country, people are feeling the pressure of what's happening and not always have the ability to be in community with people. So if you just want to communicate, that's also fine. Just find your community and you know chat here. That's also a perfectly valid option in these times. I think we have some new folks joining. There's quite a few on the call. So, just to remind folks, this is our normal office hour time. So, if you have things happening locally that you want to talk about, if you are getting ready to maybe protest or hold an action for the first time in your local area, or if you want advice on how to build community locally, those are all things we can talk about here. You should feel free to ask whatever you want, and we can um, try and work together and try and give you advice on what to do. I am the network organizer with Women's March, so um, I've done numerous protests on my own, as well as working to help organize across the country when we have solidarity actions, like we did this weekend. And so I know there was over 300 actions this weekend. Would love to hear from anybody on that attended any of them and see how it went and how everybody felt about it. You can submit your questions using the comment feature on Facebook or on YouTube. And we will just answer the questions now since there's only a few of us, not at the end. But if folks have questions, feel free to go ahead and pop them in. Mm. Yeah, safety is a big concern, and I think we have a comfortability level that sometimes makes people forget that even when we're going to No Kings, when we're going, um, to any kind of rally, that it is still a protest, and so we do have to be careful. We still do, we have safety videos that we share frequently, especially in our host toolkit. When folks host an action, we share all of our safety information there on safety marshals, as well as just general safety information that people should know. So it's definitely, safety is paramount to everything we're doing right now. Are protests being organized in Texas to protest schools? So I will tell you, there are more protests happening than you're ever going to see on the news. So yes, protests are happening in Texas on a regular basis. I think their their response to the ICE walkouts has been escalated, and I don't know right now of any specifically targeted at the schools who've had those escalated responses. I can check and find out on that, but I don't know of any right now that are specific to that. But I do know that there are constant protests happening at detention centers, and that there are still walkouts happening across the country, and that we're still seeing that happen frequently. And we're proud of folks who are choosing to be on the right side of history right now. Um, will there be a large women's march anytime soon? So I think we talk about this frequently. The first women's march was huge, and everybody harkens back to that and kind of wants that moment in time. And we are pushing um, further than marching right now because we know what's at stake, and we know that um, although marching is a valid form of protest, we are building the muscle for more and more people, right? And so we're pushing forward to additional tactics to push farther and put pressure on. So we also still have multiple other organizations who are holding mass protests as well. And so I think we look to it as, yes, we would love for everybody to show up, but we don't hold just one action a year. We hold multiple actions on a consistent basis through the year. So we would love if everyone would show up every chance they get at every action held by everybody. And I know that's a big ask, right? We can't all be there all the time. But we know that the powers that be are watching, and the more we show up and the more people turn out across the board, and the more we escalate those actions to those non cooperation tactics that we've been teaching about, the more pressure it puts, and it shows the people power. And so, as much as we would love to have like that moment again, we need this constant pressure of showing up as much as you possibly can across the board. And so that's what we're hoping folks do. And I know, like I said, we had over 300 actions this weekend. They were well attended. There were actions around the globe. So there were actually thousands of actions for International Women's Day, which often gets overlooked because we know women's rights are not always on the forefront of everybody's mind. And so I think we did well. I think next year we can all do more. I would love to see 500 on the map next year, standing together for women's rights and joining across the country to really show solidarity with the rest of the world who kind of holds this particular day in higher regard than I think we see in the United States. So would love to see that next year have more folks showing up. Um, I see quite a few people tuning in from around the country. Appreciate y'all. If anyone was at any of the actions this weekend, would love to hear in the chat. Drop a comment on Facebook or YouTube and let me know how the action went, where you were. Feel free to drop where you're tuning in from. Again, for the new folks, I am Shauna. I am the network organizer for Women's March. And what I do is help folks put actions up. I help folks build community locally. And if you have questions ever on how to build an action of any kind, you can email me directly at sistermarch@womensmarch.com. Um, so there's a good question. How do I find out if my state has a Women's March organization? So Women's March is a national organization. We do not actually have a chapter model. We don't have individual chapters. What we do is distributed organizing, meaning we count on everyday people. Everyday people put up those actions. So it's not someone who is a chapter or a specific Women's March person. It's a person in Vermont, a person in Minnesota, someone who has decided that I need to do this in my community, and they put an action up on our map. Now, for those folks, they're welcome to contact me at any point. We provide a kit, a toolkit that gives a lot of information, but we can go beyond that. We can have conversations on how to build organizing in your community, how to build a group of activists that can work together to build a structure so that when things happen, you're prepared and can put up actions really quickly if you need to, or that you can do a deeper dive and you can do things important in your area that might be more on the non-cooperation scale, like we see against some of the ICE facilities trying to be purchased, where people are doing deep dives in how to not have those purchases go through. So we can, we can talk about all the different ways folks can get involved. Happy to answer questions here. And also, if you don't have time here, feel free to email me at sistermarch@womensmarch.com, and we can look at what it looks like to host things in your area and really hold rallies or protests or whatever it is you feel capable of doing. And if some of those folks are people who need help with those non-cooperation things, we're happy to talk about those as well. Mutual aid, there's many different ways to get involved right now. Feel free to drop more questions in the chat. Would love to hear what's going on locally for you all. If you have questions about things that are happening that I can try and help with, or if you were at any of the wonderful International Women's Day actions that happened around the country, around the globe, feel free to drop them in the chat too and tell us where you were, how it went, how everything's going. You can also just talk about building community if you're feeling sad or nervous or all the things right now, because I think everybody is. Mm, Yeah, I think we all have a lot to say about the individuals that think they have ownership over our rights. Yeah. It's definitely very frustrating to have folks try and squash our human rights, right? And that's really where we're at is women's rights are human rights and trying to fight for all of us. So I appreciate that. Feel free to drop your questions or comments um, on Facebook and YouTube. You can put them right in the comment section, and they will come up on the screen for me, so I'll be able to see what folks have interested in or what you need. Again, happy to try and help you do things locally. If you're looking for, a local gathering and you can't find it, you might be the person you're looking for. Direction and how to get something going in your community. Can you be a little more specific, Doris? Can you tell me, are you looking to um, build community with folks? Are you looking to plan, protests or things like that? Um, because we can definitely have a conversation about how to build in your local community. I would say the first things I did, I moved to a new community a few years back, and the first thing I did was find organizations that are already here working, and I volunteered with them and got to know people because that usually finds people that are like-minded and have the same values. Um, and so what I found where I am. Okay, Doris wants to plan protests. That's awesome. I am happy to help you with that, Doris. That's one of my passions. That's why I do this work. Um, but one of the first things I did here is to find my local organizations. I found, for example, I found Planned Parenthood. I found Make the Road, and then I found one. I live in Pennsylvania, and I found one called um, Pennsylvania Stands Up, which is a Pennsylvania organization. And I got together with folks there and I volunteered and I met people. Um, I was already working with Women's March at the time, but it was an eye opening experience because you learn from other people. Um, and you get to meet people in your community. So you find out what matters to folks locally. You get really in depth information on how people are being impacted. And it helps you to build kind of your personal platform on what you believe and what informs your opinions. Um, from there, I think once you have those folks, planning a protest is actually not super hard. And I know people give it a lot of weight. I'm going to tell you, we have ours at our local library, and the reason we do that is because their stairs are a built-in stage. Um, and we bring a megaphone. Sometimes people volunteer a microphone with a speaker. That's great, but it's not even a requirement. Um, you can yell out to a crowd. But the biggest thing that I will tell folks is if you build it, they'll come. So if you put a protest up on one of these weekends of action, people will show up. And it may not initially be 200 people. It might start out with 3 people. But if you show up every week with 3 people and you let people know that you're doing this, it'll be 5, and then it'll be 7, and then it'll be 12. And it will continue to grow because right now people want an outlet to get involved. So really you have to look at the topic, what you plan to protest about, where you're planning on going. So, are you going to go to your city hall steps? Are you in a big city where you can go to your capital steps? Is it a specific, um, for example, the warehouses that are being sold to ICE and people are protesting outside of them? Is it something like that? So there's different options of where you want to go and how you want to start. I'm happy to go in depth with your specific situations. If you want to email me, you can email me at sistermarch@womensmarch.com. And I'll be happy to deep dive your individual location and situation and try and find what works for you or what you want to do. And it's all going to depend on what you're looking for, what you would like to do, and where you would like to do it. I find in Philadelphia specifically, there's a statue that's right across the street from City Hall that has a really large base on the statue. Makes a great stage. So if you have um, places like that where there are natural stages, we have parks in my city that have amphitheaters, and you can rent the amphitheater for 20 or $30, and you can hold a rally there, you can do a teach in there, you can have a speaker program there where people can come and educate. There's definitely a lot of options depending on what you want. But yeah, I would love to hear from you individually if you need that kind of help. um, if you have direct questions where you already know something that's going on and you have hardcore questions right now, would love to answer those as well. From my work, do I see or feel like anything is happening or changing? Yeah, I do. And I honestly do. So I would say we've seen protest work as a change mechanism. But what we're really doing, and this is the big picture, so you have to look at it as the big picture. You may feel individually like I'm showing up right now and nothing changed the next day. And I get it. I get it. We want that great change, that immediate change. But we have to look at it as an arc, right? Right? Like the arc of justice, right? Because it's long, but it bends, right? I think we all know the quotes. And so I think we're looking at it as this arc. And the more pressure we put on that arc, the more towards justice it bends. And so that's why we don't just march all the time. I know we get a lot of asks about, are you going to march? And marching is great, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with marching, but we also need to do the additional tactics, right? So we need to look at the non cooperation tactics. We need to put more pressure on at times. And so it might be tactics that are, I saw in Philadelphia recently where some religious folks did a arm length chain across the entrance of an ICE headquarters. Now they were dispersed by the police, but there are options to do non-cooperation tactics like that. There are other non-cooperation tactics that folks are doing, which is putting pressure on businesses who are selling those warehouses, or putting pressures on businesses. I think many of you may have seen where folks went in and bought the ice scrapers from Home Depot and then returned them all. So they bought a 59-cent product and then returned them all and backed up the business because they are supporting this administration, right? And because they're allowing undocumented folks to be arrested there in Home Depot lots. So they did this whole tactic, and that's kind of the non cooperation. So it doesn't always have to be marching or showing up to a protest. The protest is the big picture, it's what they see from the outside. And it does, just like when you talk about striking, it shows you a big picture of how many people are willing to show up. And so it does matter. And they see it even if they don't want to admit they see it. They're definitely watching, and they're keeping an eye on how many people show up every single time. So it is important. If you have the ability to be there, you should be there. And that's not just for Women's March, it's for everything that's happening as often as you can. And I know that's a heavy ask. I said it earlier, we understand, not everybody can do everything. You do what you can as an individual. And I don't want to make it sound like you have to be there every single time something happens. But as often as you're able, we would love to see you show up, whether it's for us or for a different organization, because really the goal at the end for everybody is liberation, right? And the goal is for us all to get freer and have a free America. So I appreciate that question. That's a really deep question about whether we feel like it's working or not. And you may not always feel that immediately. I see a lot of folks joined us. The number is going up. So I just want to again tell you I'm Shauna. I am the network organizer from Women's March. I'm here to answer any questions you have about protest in your local area about how to build community locally. We can talk about mutual aid. We can talk about rallies. We do this. I believe it's weekly. Risa is usually here, and I'm going to be honest, she's much better at this talking part than I am. I prefer to stay behind the scenes, but I do what I do, right? So I appreciate you all joining me here. If you have any questions, feel free to comment on Facebook or YouTube. I'll be happy to answer the questions. If you have deep questions about things happening locally and want to learn more about building an action locally, you can also email me at sistermarch@womensmarch.com. Happy to deep dive anybody's local stuff to help build. And you should also, for that, you should also check out Women's March app. It is on, I believe you can get it on all the stores now. So you can get that on your phone or on tablets. And it's going to have a few things that we're not going to do outside of there. We're teaching people there as well. So we're going to build community there and hopefully help folks find their people in their local areas and really build a network so that people can communicate. So if you have someone, for example, we'll talk about Albuquerque, where we just had a great action at Zorro Ranch this past weekend. If you have someone in Albuquerque who needs support, they can reach out to someone in Amarillo who's not super far away, or someone in Santa Fe who's not super far away. And so the app is a great tool for that, and it's Women's March on all of the platforms. If anyone went to any of the International Women's Day actions over the weekend, I would love to hear how they were. Thanks, Doris. Appreciate you. If anyone has any additional comments on them, I personally checked out photos from 3 or 4 so far that I've seen, and I did watch the live stream from Zorro Ranch, which was very moving. There were survivor speeches, and was definitely very poignant, and I feel like that was one of our most moving things I saw happen. We did have, I know, a sit-in at one location. We had a teach-in at another location. Someone did a lovely stitch-in bitch, which I enjoy. There were folks who met for coffee and just talked about what's happening in their community. So when you put something on a map, it doesn't necessarily have to be a massive rally or a big march. It can literally be a community gathering to find your people. And that's a great way to start building community where you are. Put a gathering on our map and share it on Facebook. And, I would like to meet 10 people at our local coffee shop who feel like they want to work on building community in our local area, or who want to try and build a mutual aid setup locally. So those are some things you can do with the tools that are available on womensmarch.com, and you can go right to our events to our map and put up anything you feel is going to be of value to your community, to people. And that can be anything from just gathering together to reading feminist literature to having a sit-in on your city hall steps. So I appreciate y'all taking the time to join and do what you can. If folks have questions, please use the comment feature on Facebook or YouTube. I'll try to answer any questions that come through. We have about 20 minutes or so left. I see quite a few people on. If you want to drop in the chat where you're watching from, you can do that as well. I like to see that we're talking with folks all across the country, so that's exciting for me. I'm in Pennsylvania. Some folks did some great work in New York outside Trump Tower. There was a nice action that happened. I saw Reston, Virginia had one that was nice. Houston had an action up. There were several across Minnesota. Does not surprise me. I see Minnesota standing up strong pretty much all the time. I'm really impressed with everything they've done to build locally. If you have any questions on how to do any of that, I'm happy to answer them. You can drop questions or comments in the chat on Facebook or YouTube, and they'll come right up for me, so I'll be able to answer you. If you have questions on how to how to prepare, even what do you do ahead of time? How do you make sure you have marshals for a march? How do you actually march safely? If you have safety concerns about doing something locally, if you're trying to have a protest in a red city. I grew up in very rural Pennsylvania, so I know quite a bit about that, even though I live in a bluer area now. I often see some of the areas I grew up with still having protests up, which gives me a little boost of pride. So I definitely appreciate everybody who's doing what they can in areas that don't necessarily respect their rights as much. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments on Facebook and YouTube. Mm. I think Virginia is coming a long way. I think they're doing more and more, and it's not the people. I think the government now is finally catching up with the people. I think Virginia's great. If you have questions, I am Shauna. I am the network organizer for Women's March. So when you see solidarity actions happen across the country, that's the part that I help with, help folks learn how to do that, answer questions, um, help people with different tactics, whether it be um, just a general sign waving or a banner drop, whether people are into wheat pasting, um, art installations. I think people discount art as protest quite frequently, and there's a lot of art as protest that is just amazing. Um, so there's quite a few options of what folks can do locally, and I think we narrow it to what a protest should look like instead of expanding our thoughts on that. So I'd love to see all the creative things that get put out. I know in Texas um, there was an art project yesterday that was making paper flowers. And I know that there was also a flower display that was built at Zorro Ranch that was intended to replace the one that was torn down that represented the victims. And so, and survivors for that matter. So I think there's a lot of tie-in from art to things you can do in protest. Um, we can look at the streets in DC when Black Lives Matter was painted there, and when sidewalk crossings are painted rainbow colors or things like that to support LGBTQIA. So I think there's a lot of art that people who are creatives can get involved with. So those are great people to meet in your community because creatives have some awesome ideas for protest. So just some thoughts on what folks might want to do locally if you're looking to start something or to try and build. And then we can also talk about mutual aid, which is something that I have a big passion for. We have a network locally that's called Buy Nothing. And it's people giving up things that they no longer have a use for, but it provides a service to the community and allows folks to not have to spend money unnecessarily. And so it may not necessarily be, and sometimes it is, things like formula or food or diapers or everyday necessities. But it also might be that you moved and you have a built-in microwave and you no longer need your countertop microwave, but someone out there does. Or that um, you've rearranged furniture and don't want that bookshelf anymore. And so someone out there can use that who might not be able to afford it. So that is a really awesome mutual aid network that I think we have where I live. Hope other folks also are building things like that, but that also includes gardening. And if you expand a gardening plot by a few feet, you can feed a whole nother family. There's different techniques that people use to get more yield, to help build for two or three families. And if everybody on your block grew for two or three families, imagine the quantity of food we would have to spare for our neighbors in times of need, especially when we're watching prices increase right now. So there's a whole lot of opportunities of things you can do in community to help that aren't necessarily protest, but that are forms of protest, right? Because mutual aid to me is a form of protest. It's helping each other in a time where folks are not always prepared to do that. If folks have any questions on how to do any of these things, or if you want to make comments on what you're doing locally or what's happening in your local community, would love to hear what you're doing. Um, Hear what's happening in your area. If people are organizing, what are they organizing around? If people are building community, how are they doing it? Are you having local meetings? I know the city I live in has a group that started organizing several years ago, and they've not developed into a statewide or even countywide group. They developed here specifically, and they organize people in our city. They knock doors for different subjects, not always politics, not always for a candidate. Um, but they knock doors for the different measures that might be on a ballot. So it's not necessarily candidate specific, but you can always knock doors for something that matters to you. You can get literature from almost anywhere. Um, so if there's something that matters to you, you can also organize folks to go knock doors and try and persuade people. And we can talk forever about persuasive conversations. If you have questions, again, feel free to drop them in the comments on Facebook or YouTube. If you have questions about how to build a local protest, or if you have questions about how to build that mutual aid network, or things like that, feel free to drop them in there, or you can email me at sistermarch@womensmarch.com. And if you were at any of the International Women's Day actions over the weekend, if you did anything specific for International Women's Day, drop it in the chat. Let me know what you did, where you were, how it went, how it felt to be part of something. I think personally, I always like to go to I like to go to the protest, even just to be in community with people I know that are like-minded to me, that also are feeling the pressure and the stress of these times. It feels easier to lift when there's a group of us lifting it. Feel free to drop any kind of questions or concerns you have in the chat. Um, if you have never been to a protest, I would find that very interesting too. But also, if you have never hosted something, if you've never been the one to say, let's go to the street corner and wave our signs tomorrow and say, I'm not going to take this anymore. I'll be curious what you think your moment will be. So I think everybody has their moment where they just decide they can't take this anymore and they're going to do something. So feel free to share that in the chat as well. Normally, this is our office hours time. Risa, who is in transit today from that amazing action at the Zorro Ranch, is usually here. She is on camera more than I am and probably more comfortable, but I'm happy to be here with y'all today in community as well. Feel free to drop your questions, concerns, anything you have going on locally that you would like to uplift. If you have any thoughts on how to do something in your local community, whether it be how to do a protest, or whether it's how to do a petition, how to talk to your neighbors. What do I do if my family are Trump supporters? I know those answers because I've been there. So I appreciate you all joining and listening to me ramble as we try and build some community here and help each other. If there are folks that do have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat on Facebook or YouTube. Happy to help with whatever I can. We've got about 13 or so minutes left of office hours, but you all can email if there's questions that don't get answered here. Feel free to email sistermarch@womensmarch.com. I am happy to get on individual calls with folks, talk through issues you're having. I don't know if we've clarified this, so I should probably say it right at the beginning, but I'll say it now. I'm very quick to ban people. If you are saying something that is nonsensical, or if you are being derogatory to me, to each other, in ways that are unhealthy in the comments, I will be very quick to block and delete. We do not have to put up with that, and we choose not to. And so I am very quick to make that happen. Yes, I agree. Enough is enough. I think we are more and more at a point where people are feeling the frustration of what's happening as we watch Iran, and we watch the lack of accountability around the Epstein files, and we watch what happens with ICE, and watch our human rights be stripped away. We are hopefully all coming to a point where we understand that we need to show up. And I appreciate all of you that do that on a regular basis. Show up when you can, as often as you can. And obviously, then also do your self care and make sure you're taking care of yourself, because it's a lot. It's a lot out there. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and I will be happy to answer them. And could be on anything that you think is relevant to what we've been talking about. Things that are happening local for you, things that are happening in your community, questions on how to do things. So happy to answer anything you have going on. Feel free to drop questions in the chat. If specifically if you are on Facebook or YouTube, you should have access to our chat, and you can ask anything that you think I might have an answer to. I'm happy to give my best shot at everything. I am, again, just for those who are new to the chat, I'm Shauna. I am the network organizer for Women's March. So I do help put up um, actions for us, protests, sit ins, community meetings. We put them on our map. If you're looking locally to organize something, I'm happy to talk individually to folks. If you have questions on how to do something, whether it be going to talk in front of your city council for the first time, starting a petition in your neighborhood for something important to you, or holding your first protest. I'm happy to talk about any of that. If you want to push further, like I said, into mutual aid, into non-cooperation, into how to do heavier options, happy to talk about that. I think all forms of action right now are really valid, and we need to be looking out for each other and doing our best to make sure we're moving the needle wherever we can. I think we are approaching our end of time. We have about 8 minutes left. Um, Definitely appreciating that all of you are here. I see a lot of folks that stuck with the whole call. Um, if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you have things you want to talk about, like I said, we can also just talk about what it's like to be in community together right now, and carrying this weight collectively and not as an individual, and recognizing that we're not alone in this. We can do that too. It's always helpful to know that there's multiple people here that are feeling the same way we are, and um, that are prepared to be in community with us. Awesome. Yes. Also, yes, support everyday people running for office. Support everyday people running for office. I can't stress that enough. There are so many open positions. Everything from election watchers and poll watchers, to elected officials like city council, or even higher offices. Don't be afraid to put your name in. Put a name in for something. And do it ahead of time, because people will vote for you. I promise you, people will vote for you. Um, but yeah, we definitely want to see folks running for office. We want to see that happen. We have a few things in progress with Women's March that you can get involved with. One is our digital defenders option. Um, One is volunteering with Women's March. We do a lot of things that we ask volunteers to help with. We are a small but mighty organization, and so we count on our volunteers, and they do an amazing job. I'm very, very proud of our volunteer network. They do great things. And then we also have other things that are upcoming. You can check them all out on our app. It's Women's March. You can get that on any of your devices. It's an Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Technical difficulties. That happens. Um, Looks like we have everything back in. Great. Um, yeah, I agree. I think people undercount what someone who works from their home, what a homemaker actually does, with budgeting and making sure things happen. Um, yeah, absolutely. I think women should run for office everywhere. I appreciate that comment. Absolutely. But yeah, absolutely, people should be involved, whether it's local, whether it's countywide, whether it's state legislature, whether you're running for Congress. There is validity in your voice, and so you shouldn't be afraid to get out there. There's a lot of positions that don't have anybody's name in them. And so I recommend it. Absolutely. We have about 4 minutes left. So if you have any questions, feel free to jump in there. Let me know what you're thinking about. If you have questions that run a little deeper and you want information on how to do any of the things I've talked about, feel free to email me at sistermarch@womensmarch.com. I might even have that in here. Sometimes I am a little bit, there we go. Look at that. And you can go ahead and email that email address. And we will have actions coming up. I know we just had stuff happen all this weekend for the amazing International Women's Day actions that occurred. And I know that there's other big actions happening. We're looking very much forward to May Day and some of the other big things that are going to be coming up. So I would love to make sure that we see all of you out there as much as possible. See you in the streets and doing your most. Um, can't ask everybody to do everything, but everybody can do as much as they can. And so show up where you can, when you can. Do your very best to be involved and stay active. And hopefully that is what it takes for us all to make a big impact and help move change. Yeah, yeah. I think we do also talk about that, right? Caring about ourselves in these times. So make sure we're all doing the appropriate self-care. Make sure you're taking the time away from social media. And I know I say that with us all on social media right now. Um, but make sure you take some time to breathe. Take some time away, touch grass, touch a mountain, jump in a stream. Do something that gets you away from all of the tension and all of the heaviness that's happening right now so that you can um, re-energize and come back and be prepared to fight again. So I appreciate all of you taking the time to join me here today. Again, I am Shauna. I am the network organizer for Women's March. My email is on the screen, and there you have it. My email is on the screen. And if you have questions, if there's things that you want to know how to do in your local community, whether it is just organizing folks to come together and build community or mutual aid or community garden or any of those things, or whether you're trying to host protests or hold actions of any kind locally, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. We also would love if folks are doing things locally to have you put it on our map. Let people know you're doing things. The map is on our website. You can also get to it through the link at bravewomen.us. And so you can go to bravewomen.us and get right on the map. It says host or join in action. And so you can use that link at any time to jump on and find or host an action and put up, whether you're meeting at a coffee shop or whether you're doing something that's a big protest in your community. Just give it a shot and put it up there, and the people will come. Yes, and we are big supporters of union as well. Yes, the AFL-CIO. That's awesome. I love that for y'all. All right, that is going to be it for us today. We do office hours on a regular basis at the same day and time. Please feel free to join Risa next week, and I will see you all in the streets.